Welcome to Listen for the Change. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about patience. So, as I hope, as you know, if not, if you're new, Listen for the Change is a semi-regular show in which we talk about how do we operate within the modern world, how do we operate in the world of chaos, while applying our knowledge of yoga, but also our ancient, our ancient wisdom, philosophies, and ideas. Um, the biggest cliche, well, one of the biggest cliches in the world. There's many biggest cliches in the world, as you all know. Um, Everything happens for a reason. Uh, Visualize it, and it will become. Um, but if you've been to enough yoga classes, you've definitely heard somebody say, some yoga teacher tell you, well, the word yoga means to unite, to, and it does, and then it does, to yug, to bind things together, to yoke things together as you would yoke an ox to a plow and the plow to the field. Um, and that's true. But what does that mean in our modern world? Um, Breath, body, and mind. What does that mean to the modern world? I mean, it doesn't mean doing a handstand. That's cool and everything, and that's super super fun, and and it does require some training and some dedication and some work and all that kind of stuff. But gymnasts do it, and they're not practicing yoga necessarily, although plenty of times gymnasts come into the yoga stuff afterwards after they've become injured, right? And so one of the things we practice is no harm in this kind of thing. Um, Oftentimes we come into yoga after we've caused harm. And so we look at things like viveka. We look at these things like the viveka, the term for discernment, making proper choices, that kind of thing, at proper times. But I really, really want to look at patience, and because I think in our times, I mean, we all can. I think we can all, no matter where we come from, no matter what our ideologies, we we I think we can all agree that um, that what might be lacking a lot in our times, in our culture, in our world, is patience with each other, patience with other people. I mean, just go onto your social media, which I guess this is considered social media. Um, Go on your social media and see how much patience people have with each other, um, and we'll find that sometimes that's lacking. Another thing I think is very much lacking, and we'll talk about this at another time, is courage. Um, Everybody's so afraid. It seems like, and I've been teaching this a lot for the last, I don't know, 20 years, 19 years, is how folks are so dominated by fear. We're so manipulated by fear. We're afraid. We're afraid. We're just afraid of things. And that fear has led to such incredible demonstrations of inhumanity just because we were afraid. I think we could see that today in the news. I think we can see that on a day-to-day basis. But when we walk in and we start to walk into our yoga studio, or when we're just practicing our practice, the idea is to lose that fear. The idea is to get away from it. But again, let's go back to the idea of patience. There's a story I tell about when I was younger. My first real adult job, when I was 18 years old, I was a camp counselor. Uh, and it was for an outdoor camp. And we worked a lot with kids from the inner city, from Long Beach and Los Angeles. And these kids were from schools. And, I'm just going to say they were from maybe the fourth grade to the seventh grade, I would guess. It's been a while. I was 18 years old. And and I'd be responsible for anywhere between like 7 to 15 of them, give or take. And these were some pretty hard kids, that they grew up in their neighborhoods, and they had attitudes, and they had these super heavy fronts. And but eventually, like, I would take them out, and I would take them out on like night hikes out in the middle of the woods. This was in the mountains, okay? So some of these kids had never been outside of their neighborhood. Certainly, if not all of them, most of them had never been in the mountains. Um, you know, I was even surprised that many of them that lived in like Long Beach had never even been to the beach. So although they were hard and they were experienced in some ways, in other ways they were just like naive as all get out. So after I had them for a couple of days, I would take them out for a night hike in the middle of the woods. Right? No flashlights allowed, none of this stuff. Right? And I would take them off trail, and we'd go off trail, and I knew the route. It was like no worries, but and we'd go, and I'd take them to this boulder that was broken in half, big boulder, house-sized boulder that was broken in half, and I'd ask them what had happened to it, and they'd come up with all these ingenious things, like a lightning bolt hit the boulder, or like a miner like broke it in half, or whatever, and then I got to explain to them the freeze and thaw cycle of nature, of water. Like rain came down on that boulder, and it kind of wore a groove away, and then more rain got into that groove, and it would it would settle there, and it would freeze, and it would expand, and it would make a little bit deeper, a little bit wider of a groove, and then over thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of years, as that rain got deeper and it froze and expanded, and then it thawed and it got deeper and it froze and expanded, that eventually it broke that boulder in half. And I would tell the kids that life is like that. Like, you can come off as hard as you want to. No matter how hard you are, you will be split in half. You will break. Because something as gentle as water is so persistent, it's irresistible. And that's why in the Tao Te Ching, we, uh, we talk about water, or it talks about water and wanting to live like water. See, water finds its place, it flows, it's patient. Okay? When it comes against a barrier, it doesn't pound its head against the barrier. It goes around the barrier. And as it goes around the barrier, it wears that barrier away. And eventually, as it's wearing that barrier away, eventually it just takes care of it and it's gone. But it doesn't get concerned, you know, and so that's how in, in that idea, that's how we live. We're patient, we're calm, you know, we don't force things. Nothing good comes from force. Very few things good come from force. I mean, okay, I've taken off a couple of lug nuts off of the tires by forcing them, but I will tell you they probably would have come off eventually through patient pressure. And I definitely wouldn't have snapped off the posts that I did. So usually when you force things, you get resistance. There's this story that Swami Vivekananda used to say. Vivekananda was a Swami that brought yoga or Hindu or philosophy to to the West in the late 1800s, and he would tell this story. He's kind of a funny character because he died very young, and it said that yogis kind of can choose their death once they're at a certain state, once they're at a certain level. And Vivekananda said that he would not live to be 40 years old, and he didn't leave, and he died at 49. And I can't remember exactly what he died of, but his adherents said that he was like, I don't know, he had produced so much energy or something that, blew his cap off. Um, I don't know exactly the story. Um, that it sounded like a seizure or brain aneurysm to me. But maybe it's both. Maybe it's both. Two things can exist at the same time. Okay. So so there's this old story he used to tell though about like these two adherents, these two meditatives in the woods. And so this great sage was walking through the jungle, and he comes upon this first man, and he was meditating underneath this tree, this uh, what is it? A tamarind tree. And he's been meditating so long that he has roots growing over, or vines growing over him, and leaves growing up. Oh no, he has an ant hill growing around him. And this guy, he's meditating, but he wakes up from his meditation, and he's like, "Hello," and our great sage says, "Hello," and our meditative, and I'm just going to call him. I'll call him a yogi. And this yogi says, "Hey, what are you doing? Where are you going?" And our sage says, "Oh, I'm going to hang out with God in heaven for a little bit." Because our sage could go from earth to heaven, and uh, and uh, and the guy and our yogi says, "Okay, well, could you do me a favor and ask God how long I'll be meditating here before I get released from cycles of death and rebirth, from samsara? How long do I have to be here before I get to attain enlightenment?" And our great sage says, "Yeah, I can do that." And the yogi goes back into his meditation. And the sage walks on a little bit, and then he comes upon another yogi. But this yogi is not sitting in meditation. He's like dancing and singing, and he's meditating, but he's dancing and he's singing. And it's the dance of lila. It's the dance of joy. It's that thing. And a dancing yogi stops and he looks at the sage. He goes, "Hey sage, what's up? What you doing?" And the sage is like, "Hey, I'm going to see God. I'm going to go hang out with him in heaven and ask him some questions." And a great and the yogi, the dancing yogi, goes, "Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. You can do that. Can you ask him something?" And the sage kind of getting tired of this already. He goes, yeah, sure. And the dancing yogi says, hey, man, could you ask him how long I'm going to be around for this? How long until I find enlightenment? No big deal, but I just kind of want to know. It'd be like cool to know. And the sage says, yeah, for sure. I'll do that. And he walks on. And he's gone for a while, and he's gone for, I don't know how long. Many years, maybe. Yeah, it's been a few years for sure. Because he's left heaven, he's left God, he's left God's place, and he's back in the same part of the jungle. And he comes upon that first yogi again, and the anthill has only grown bigger around him. And the vines have grown more and more around him, the leaves grown around, and he's grown grayer, and he looks like crap. He's just been meditating this whole time. And 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 he and he and the yogi looks up and he goes, "Hey, sage." And the sage goes, "Huh? Yeah." And he goes, "Did you ask God how long? How long will I be sitting here in meditation before I reach enlightenment?" And our great sage, he says to the yogi, goes, I did, and I have good news for you. And the yogi's eyes brightened up. And he says, yeah, what is that news? And the great sage says, you will only have to live 7 more lifetimes before you reach enlightenment. And the yogi's like flips out. He's like, what are you fucking talking about? I probably didn't use those words, but he's like, what are you talking about? I've been sitting here meditating, I don't know for how many lifetimes, at least this whole lifetime. I have anthill growing on my body. I have vines growing all over me and leaves growing all over me. And I'm going to have to do this 7 more lifetimes? And the sage goes, well, that's what God says. And he walks on because that yogi wasn't good company anyway. And then he's walking on and he comes on upon the second yogi who's still dancing, but he's looking a little old. You know, he's kind of, I'm embellishing the story a little bit, but he's looking a little old. The beard is getting gray, but he's still dancing and laughing. He's still singing and doing the Leela dance. And he kind of stops the dance when he sees the sage. He goes, hey, what's up, sage? And the sage goes, what's up? And our yogi goes, hey, man, did you talk to God? And the sage kind of rolls his eyes and he's like, man, I hope this guy's not an asshole like that guy was. And he goes, yeah, I talked to the God. And the sage goes, oh, or the yogi says, oh, what did he have to say? And 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 the sage goes, well, I kind of have bad news for you. And the yogi says, there's no bad news. There's just news. There's just the way things are. And and the sage goes, well, look up at that tamarind tree above you. Tamarind tree, a big old tree, right? And the yogi looks at the tree covered with leaves. And the sage says, do you see how many leaves are upon that tree? And the yogi looks, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of leaves. And the yogi says, yeah, see them? And the sage says to him, he says, well, God says that you will have to live as many lifetimes as there are leaves on that tree before you reach enlightenment. And the yogi looks at him like with serious eyes and he goes, huh, well, at least I can count them. So that's kind of the end of this story. There's a denouement to this story. There's an untying of that. Out comes a chariot from the sky. Out comes a charioteer from God. And he says to that yogi, he says, hey, hop on board. You're ready to go. And the yogi says, what? Where am I going? And the sage says, well, you've shown your wisdom. There's no need for you to be reborn again. So the yogi showed patience, the other one did not. And through that patience, he reached enlightenment. And I think if we have patience with each other, and that's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do in our world to show patience. We are not taught that. We're taught immediate gratification. We're taught we want it now. There's a reason why Jeff Bezos is a very rich man, because he could get our stuff to us in one day, whatever that might be. Okay, so, but let's try to practice patience with each other, with the people, well, with the people we love, particularly, with the people we care for, with outside society. Let's maybe add patience to our yamas. It will fit in there anyway. Um, let's try to fit patience into our niyamas. It'll fit there anyway. We'll talk about both of those. Let's try to fit patience in all of that, but let's try to particularly be patient with ourselves. Let's allow ourselves to develop. Let's allow ourselves to be who we are. And I think that's all I've got to say about that. I would love to hear from you. Our email address is homeyogaoc@gmail.com. Our Instagram handle is the same. So if you'd like to interact, I'd love to hear. If you are if you're in the Orange County area, please come to a class. Again, you'll find that at homeyogaoc.com. And I really hope to begin to have a dialogue. Many blessings, patience to you, and namaste.